Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today, we're going to be looking at The Scorpion number 1 through 3, a Howard Chaykin creation published by Atlas Seaboard Comics in 1975. He only does the first 2 issues, and, well, we'll get to that 3rd issue in a little bit, and it's not good. But I gotta say, these first 2 issues, I got these maybe a year or 2 after they came out at a quarter bins. Like, I got the same way I got most of my Atlas Seaboard comics in the mid to late 70s. And these are 2 of my favorite comics growing up. Especially compared to like Marvel Team Up or something. The other stuff I was reading, DC Comics Presents or whatever. This is just amazing stuff. It's pretty much, after Iron Wolf, it's Chaykin's first stab at like making a character. And of course, he's made many over the decades. And, this is like that archetypal Chaykin character, kind of pulp, kind of a sardonic sense of humor, probably Jewish, even though he couldn't state it. So this is the first. Well, I guess Iron Wolf is the first, but this definitely became pretty soon after this. He just totally retooled this comic and turned it into Dominic Fortune at Marvel. But this is the prototype. Love this cover by Chaykin. So good. Just a really classic cover. So I guess the story starts, the narrator's talking about a man with unusual longevity. And over the years, he's resurfaced many times under a different identity. J.C. Clellan Lowe, balloonist observer for the Union Army. Virgil Torrent, special envoy to President Roosevelt. Ben Turk, gringo mercenary flying for Villa against Pershing. And Michael Christie, Lafayette escadrille pilot in World War I. After the war, Michael Christie disappeared without a trace, and then 20 years later, he pops up again, this time calling himself Morrow Frost, better known as the Scorpion. Man, I love this so much. This is just so cool. It's like almost getting a second great cover. And I did want to go back real quick and just say, I love the way they do this, like the old photographs. He even puts it in an album. Just like little attentions to detail that he does is really great in this comic. This also makes me want to I wish Chaykin could have written this comic for 300 issues. And maybe we would have gotten some of his past identities and stuff. So here we go with, this is the very first recorded adventure of the Scorpion. According to the narrator, it's called the Death's Gemini Commission. A very 70s title. So everything's by Howard Chaykin, except the lettering's by Annette Kawecki, probably the best letterer in the 70s. Probably the best of all time. And I just found out, reading a Howard Chaykin interview, why she disappeared from the comic scene. She became a doctor. I never knew that. Mildly interesting. The artwork is signed 74, so he was working on this in late 74, but it didn't come out till February 75. So we start off, it's New York. An airplane, Empire State Airways Cargo Flight 521, is all of a sudden, its engine starts crapping out. Our hero, Morrow Frost, and his aide-de-camp, Ruby Bishop, are just coming out of a theater. They ask some guy what's going on. He's like, there's a plane falling out of the sky. I'm getting the hell out of here. Morrow thinks, Ruby thinks that it might be landing near their house, so they run towards where they think it might be landing. I wanted to mention, I love how Annette Kawecki throughout the comic does that Art Deco lettering. The first letter of every caption is this really stylish lettering. It really adds to the feel, the 30s feel of this. So the plane crashes, fortunately not on their house. And Morrow mentions that it's strange that the pilots are both wearing their parachutes and they're dead at the controls. This guy comes up. His name's Roger Boyle. He owns Empire State Airways. That was the plane that crashed. He basically wants to hire Moral Frost. I guess this is the fourth plane that he's lost in a month. So something's going on here. Definitely some no good nicks are up to some shenanigans. He takes the job, and then he says, let's go to Ruben's for a nightcap, Ruby. So they it's kind of nice. They have this very like you know, the Thin Man movies. They have that kind of relationship. They're like definitely in love with each other, and they're kind of sassy and kind of funny. It seems like they probably have a good time every day. They're just like, they know how to have a good time, these two. Meanwhile, we see a private lake in upstate New York. A plane lands, and at the private lake to meet them is a guy named Cajero Cilla, a shipping czar. It turns out it's these two guys in the plane, who I don't know their names. They are the ones who made that plane crash over New York City. Apparently they have this sonic gun. It focuses sound. And so they killed the pilot with one shot and then upped the dosage and shot down the engine, or destroyed the engine. I love the way he draws this Cajero guy. Cajero says, come up to the house. I have another job for you. Now we see Scorpion and Ruby are meeting Boyle, their new client. And the plan is that Ruby's going to stay on the ground. She's going to walk around the seedy bars and see if she can pick up any information. Scorpion is going to get in his plane and tail this ESA flight in case anyone attacks it. And those guys show up. So Scorpion's on their tail. Look at this interesting thing Chaykin does here. It's almost like she turns into Alex Toth for a panel. This panel even looks like it could be a great, Toth dogfight panel. He was so good at that. These two bad guys aren't used to dealing with, dogfights and stuff. And so Scorpion makes short work of him. He totally takes him out. And it looks like the plane explodes. So he says to himself, well, that takes care of the immediate problem, but now I got to find out who's behind all this shit. Meanwhile, Ruby is walking in this bad part of town. This guy attempts to, he accosts her. And we find out that Ruby is kick-ass. Look at her. She must know martial arts or something. But she beats the crap out of this guy and then pulls a gun on him. A rock comes out of nowhere, knocks the gun out of her hand, and there's a second assailant working with the guy. And then a third. They basically say, hey, lady, tell us what you found out at the bars. Why are you snooping around? God, I love the way he draws Ruby. And I love this guy's face, too. That's a really interesting face. It seems like later on, Chaykin would just draw the same kind of faces over and over. But in this really mid-70s Chaykin stuff, there's a lot of distinctive faces. Like that Cajero guy we looked at, and this guy. So a gloved hand appears out of nowhere with a strange pistol, shoots two darts at two of the guys, knocks them out. And then, of course, if you haven't guessed already, it's the Scorpion. And he comes out and clocks the third one. God, I love this panel, or I should say lack thereof. This borderless panel here, just all the white, and just such a striking dynamic image, like action shot. And we get three little cinematic panels here of the fight. And of course, Scorpion wins, because he's the hero. He says, hey, who's behind all this? And he gives up the name Cajero. I gotta say, I really miss, Chaykin's storytelling from this time. Lots of little panels. He's really cramming in lots of story. You're getting more for your money. It seems like Chaykin, I don't know, for the past a long time, has just been doing 6-panel grids, kind of very uninteresting page layouts. But he was so good at this. Now we see the office of Cajero. It's late at night. Those two bad guys show up. Apparently they didn't die in the crash. They claim they bailed out. I don't know. It looked like the plane exploded. But they're pretty pissed off because they're like, we lost our sonic gun. We lost our plane. And Cajero says, oh, tut-tut. I'll write you a check. but he's really reaching for a gun. But these two bad guys are too quick for him, and they take him out. They kill Calagian. God, I love these panel layouts. I love everything about this art. I should have looked up the colorist. This coloring is pretty nice. So the two bad guys look in the safe, Calagian safe. They find some blueprints for a carrier, and they're basically gonna sell them to the Germans, the Nazis. And then right then, Scorpion pulls up to question Calagian. They say, I will deal with Scorpion later. Let's just escape through the roof. Meanwhile, we see Ruby Bishop at the house. She just gets out of the shower. She gets a call from Boyle, the client. And he says, oh, Scorpion's not there. Well, could you come down immediately to the airfield? It's very important. As he hangs up the phone, we realize he's has a gun aimed at his head by the bad guys. So it's a trap. She gets there. The two bad guys pop out, say, hey, do what we say or we're going to blow this guy's head off. And, God, I love this face of Mauro Frost there. Scorpion calls home to his butler. Butler says, oh, yeah, Miss Bishop went to the airfield. So now, of course, Scorpion's going to head over there. I love these three panels of him just riding through the city. It's like a really great panel there. He gets to the airfield, and he finds the two bad guys holding axes in their hands, and Ruby's tied up to a propeller. They inform the Scorpion that there's like a timer, and at any minute, the propeller will start rotating and rip Ruby to shreds, basically. Another really cool looking panel. But of course, Scorpion's not gonna let that happen. So the Scorpion has got his vest that he wears. It's got chainmail lining. So he takes it off and uses it as a weapon. He attacks the first guy, bashes in his face, and then he does the same to the other guy. Runs over to the propeller and turns it off before it can kill Ruby, and he frees her. One of the guys wakes up first. He runs out to a plane, and he's gonna escape. Then the second guy wakes up and runs after the plane, saying, hey, Charlie, I'll pace you, and then I can jump in the plane. Meanwhile, Scorpion gets on his motorcycle again. So this guy's all like, all right, Charlie, I'll jump on soon. And fucking Charlie just says, sorry, George, coming through, don't have time. And he just mows down poor George, turns him into red mist here. Meanwhile, Scorpion's chasing this plane. And God, I love this sequence. This is so cool. There's that automobile in front of the Scorpion. He pulls up on his handlebars, tightens his grip, and uses it as a ramp. And he flies into the air, basically right next to the airplane, and fires a bunch of bullets into the fuselage. That is so cool to me, this panel. And the plane explodes. Great explosion panel. Vatum. And Boyle and Ruby run up to Scorpion. His motorcycle's trashed. And also, you know, all he cares about is the money. He's like, yeah, just wait till you get my bill, Mr. Boyle. And we also see like his character, you know, he's human, like Chaykin's heroes. They're not like these goody two-shoes Boy Scouts. So as he's leaving, he says, you know, Ruby, it's mornings like these when I really start feeling my age. Because, you know, they're normal guys. They're basically working class heroes, Chaykin's characters. And that's why I like them. Next, we have Scorpion number 2. And as you can see, it's not Howard Chaykin doing the cover art. It's Ernie Colon, which is usually a pretty good thing, but not as good as Chaykin. In fact, I'll show you how little it is as good as Chaykin. This is from the Bible, if you're an Atlas Seaboard fan. John B. Cook's comic book artist, number 16 from 2001. This was the first magazine that just in depth. I mean, this is like a great softcover book, basically, like a great trade book about Atlas Comics, but it was just a magazine. So this one, he introduced Howard Chaykin and asked him about the Scorpion. And not only that, but he always unearths amazing art from the files. So look at this. I never saw this as a youngster. This is the unused Howard Chaykin cover for number 2. Pretty damn good. I don't know what the hell they were thinking by rejecting it. And then there's another cover for number 2. They rejected this one too. That one I think is even more striking. This is a great cover, but they didn't like it for some reason. And then on top of that, we just get to see a nice little Scorpion sketch from around the time when he was developing the character. That's super rare. There's Howard Chaykin back then. Kind of a groovy guy with his sideburns. And now let's get to Scorpion number 2. So we see Maura Frost and Ruby. They're in a fancy restaurant. Morrow gets a phone call from a Mrs. Reinhardt. She basically wants to hire him, and some case about involving black magic and voodoo. Her husband has disappeared. He's been muttering about all this black magic stuff. She has no idea what's going on. Morrow gets on the phone to basically say, this doesn't sound like my kind of case, miss. I'm not going to take it. Then all of a sudden, he senses some menace, and he turns around, and it's this glowing lion. So weird looking in this, pretty realistic comic. This is called the Devil Doll Commission. So this issue is very interesting. It says, by Howard Chaykin with a great deal of help from Bernie Wrightson, Michael Kaluta, Walter Simonson, and Ed Davis. So apparently Howard Chaykin ran into some deadline trouble on this issue and got his 4 powerhouse artist friends to not only ink some stuff, they penciled a lot of this, according to Howard Chaykin's interview, over his rough layouts. So I was trying to spot the artist, but I guess I'm not that good at that. The one name you might not be familiar with is Ed Davis, a really fascinating guy who, I don't know, he probably did 10 comics. And he was amazing. And then he just kind of disappeared from the comics business. He was in early heavy metals. Really great artist. Just kind of a shame that he never did more stuff. So, yeah, great splash page. That's so good. So, I almost said Reuben. Maura Frost pulls a knife from his, he's got some little, hidden in his wrist sheath. And when he stabs the lion repeatedly. And then all of a sudden, a human-like cry comes from the lion, and it turns into a man, a dead man. So Morrow picks up the phone. What a cool cat. He just fought this mystical lion, a were-lion. And then he just gets on the phone and says, I think I will take that case, Mrs. Reinhardt. His interest is piqued for sure. So she comes to his office. And I guess her husband just picked up this briefcase with private documents and drove off. And that's the last she's ever seen of him. The whole time he was muttering something like, no voodoo witchcraft's gonna stop me, or something like that. She says that she overheard him mentioning Max Cervantes, a gangster, on the phone. Morrow informs her that Max Cervantes died 8 years ago in a plane wreck. So he says, okay, I'll look into it. She asks Ruby to get a complete rundown on Jules Reinhardt, and then he's going to hit the streets. There's some of this is pretty crude. It's not as good as the first issue. Some of it's amazing, though. I think I could see some Kaluta here in the backgrounds, but I don't know. It is kind of interesting, though, seeing all these styles mesh. This panel's a little sloppy, though. Maybe Al Milgrom was allowed in the room, the jam room. I love this kind of stuff, this little montage scene of him scouring the city, roughing up guys for information. Another really great panel. So I guess he's got this grappling hook thing so he can swing around the city. He finally gets some information that leads him to the speakeasy that ever since alcohol has been legalized, it's now like a drug den. There's a guy there named Wellen, and he basically says, I know Cervantes is alive. I want him. The guy tries to lie and says, okay. When Morrow shoves a gun up his nose, he says he's behind a panel. We've been hiding him here. So behind this false wall, they go inside, and Max is there. He's dead. Morrow's Scorpion says, but this man is Jules Reinhardt. And the guy tells him, yeah, that's what Max called himself ever since 1930, 8 years ago. He faked the plane crash. A doc in Chicago changed his face, and he ran out on his silent partner, Buddy Lyle. So I guess Lyle found out and was going to make some noise. So Max / Jules Reinhardt grabbed his bank books and hid out here. That's why his wife has not been able to find him. But I guess he just had a heart attack. Morrow snoops around and says, I won't be sure about that. I think it's murder. And he finds a voodoo doll with pins stuck in it of Reinhardt. Back at his house, he compares notes with Ruby. And they head over to Mrs. Reinhardt's place. Now we meet these two characters. I can't remember their name, but they're behind all of these shenanigans. Turns out they have an old, like, witch doctor, voodoo priestess on their payroll. I'm pretty sure that's Bernie Wrightson. That almost looks like the old witch from the old DC comics. And that Graham Ingalls kind of style, which Wrightson was so good at. So now Scorpion's talking to Mrs. Reinhardt. He tells her everything he knows. So it turns out Reinhardt had a Panamanian bank account that funds can only be taken out of it with her signature, Mrs. Reinhardt's signature. So basically, this makes her a target. He leaves, and he gives her a gun. He says, you know how to use this, Mrs. Reinhardt? So, and Ruby's supposed to look after her. Meanwhile, Jules Reinhardt / Max Cervantes, we see him getting out of his coffin at the funeral home. And somebody informs Ruby. And it looks like Scorpion's flying through the city. Like he's Superman. Meanwhile, back at those two gangsters' lair, the old woman says, my job's done, where's my money? And we see the guy pull a gun. He's going to pay her off. Not the way she wants him to. So when Scorpion shows up, because he's got the leads sent him there, he sees the old woman dying. And she says, don't worry, I put 2 hexes on them. And she tells him that they went to the skyport. Times you love these kind of panels of just Scorpion running through the city. It's almost like parkour. And he gets to the skyport, which was just a dock where seaplanes would land. So those two guys, those two bad gangsters, they have Mrs. Reinhardt. They nabbed her. But it turns out it's Ruby. They think she's Reinhardt, Mrs. Reinhardt, but it's not. It's Ruby. And she says, I've just been stalling you guys. And just long enough, because here comes the Scorpion. He lands and starts mowing through these bad guys. They're goons. I haven't really pointed out that one of the guys seems to own a little lion cub as a pet. See, like, how more muddy this art is than the first issue? It's still pretty interesting art, pretty damn good, but it's just not nearly as good as that first one. It's kind of a great panel when a guy's going to shoot Morrow in the back. I almost called him Dominic now. He's going to shoot Scorpion in the back. He whoops around with this machine gun. I just love this lettering. I wonder if Walt Simonson's behind this little two-panel sequence. So now it comes down to one of those gangster guys. He's got Ruby with a gun to her head. And all of a sudden, that little cub, you know, guys, maybe it's just a cat that's poorly drawn. It looks like a lion cub to me. I'll just call him the cat. The cat starts glowing. And so this gangster guy keeps saying, like, you got no choice. You know, do what I say or I'll blow her head off. And I love this how Ruby just says, okay, I've had about enough. And once again, she totally beats the shit out of this guy. Escapes his grasp. Ruby is so cool. And then all of a sudden, there's a weird smell in the air of incense. That old lady's incense. And that little cat turns into a strange lion. And Morrow picks up Scorpion picks up a machine gun, kills the lion. So then Scorpion remembers there's a second hex. And when Ruby tells him about the Reinhardt's body vanishing from the morgue, he's like, oh, that's the second hex. And he runs towards the house. The Reinhardt home. Some really great panels here. He jumps into the window and he sees the reanimated corpse of Reinhardt attacking his own wife. Kind of creepy how it's just like, his face muscles don't work. He just has the makeup from the mortuary. Every time Scorpion hits him, all it does is make a little makeup fall off. Peasky's an unstoppable zombie. He just swats Scorpion aside. And then all of a sudden, Scorpion's filled with this cold berserk fury. He's had enough of this shit. He has these little bombs, throws them at the zombie, grabs Mrs. Reinhardt, and he leaps out the window. Chaykin is just so good at action. It's just the beats of this. And it's a really good, cool explosion too. It blew it up real good. Okay, so there's an epilogue. The ambulance shows up, firemen. And once again, we see Scorpion's true character. I think there's definitely some Kaluta inking going on here, maybe. I'm not sure though. And one of the reporters who shows up says, are you sympathetic enough to Mrs. Reinhardt to waive your fee? And he says, altruism is for Albert Schweitzer. The Scorpion is not a charitable institution. Good night, gentlemen. So I love his character. You know, he's not a goody two-shoes. He's basically a mercenary. So guys, I hate to have to do this, but once again, it's the dreaded Atlas Seaboard hard left turn into Shitville. This has nothing to do, well, barely anything to do with the first two issues. I guess Chaykin left, and this Martin Goodman or Chip Goodman and Larry Lieber came up with this stupid piece of shit because they were like, hey, we got to have normal superheroes. We're not selling. The cover is by Jim Craig, who does the art in here. I've already rated that guy over the coals in that Wolf the Barbarian video. He did the 4th issue, and it's so bad. He's a little bit better in this. The art's not nearly as shitty as that one. We see a golem, and this story is called The Night of the Golden Führer. I do like how crazy this design is, the Golden Führer. He's got some weird robot head on. That's just a bizarre design. So they kind of tied into the first one. So I guess Morrow Frost, the last time he was seen was in June 43. During World War II, he was a pilot, a fighter pilot, and the Luftwaffe Luftwaffe shot him down. So, of course, he resurfaced 30 years later. And he's this guy, just this typical union suit wearing superhero. And I guess his name's David Harper now, and he's a publisher of a newspaper. He's the editor and a publisher. So just everything that was charming and interesting about the Scorpion is just obliterated the first page, just like this typical superhero. So there is something interesting about this comic that it might have been interesting if this kept going. Apparently his main mission, it says here, by night, he is a foreboding figure emerging to do two-fisted battle against hate and intolerance. And that was going to be his shtick, I guess. And we shall see in this issue that he does just that. In fact, there's Nazis in here, which in the 70s was such a novelty. Night of the Golden Fuhrer. That's such a overwrought title. I love it. I actually like that title. It sounds like a great 70s movie that you never saw. So the story is by Gabriel Levy, art by Jim Craig, as I said. So we start off, we're in this rabbi's house. Rabbi Raphael Akiba and his daughter Sarah. All of a sudden, I guess he's always talking about the Nazis because he survived the concentration camps. His daughter's like, give it a rest. This is America. That's in the past. And then all of a sudden, these Nazis, kind of Gestapo-looking guys, break in the door, and they kidnap the father. And this is when we meet the Golden Fuhrer. He looks so silly. He almost looks kind of cute. So these are like, these are real Nazis. They're calling him an insolent Jew. And so I guess that this comic is more interesting than your average superhero comic because they're going to really show like intolerance and racial hatred and stuff. So basically they take him to a sub-basement under the World Trade Center. And they make a point of talking about how it's the only place that has a atomic-powered sewage-to-energy converter. I don't know if that's true, if the World Trade Center had that. It just seems if you're going to use nuclear power, do you need sewage to be turned into energy? You're already using one of the dangerous yet a very efficient fuel source. And down under near this thing, like 10 stories below the World Trade Center, there's it's the hideout for these Nazis. Apparently they want the rabbi to resurrect these Nazis that they have in like frozen storage. So it turns out that this rabbi is the one back in World War II in Prague who made the golem come to life. So this Golden Fuhrer guy figures, okay, you know how to bring things to life. I want you to bring my Nazi compatriots to life. Now we see David Harper. Sarah comes to visit him, the daughter. Yeah, look at this shitty Jim Craig art. He's basically just a fan artist, a fanzine artist. Oh, what the hell's going on there? Look at that face on that one. It is terrible. So, David basically says, go home, stop looking for your father, it's dangerous. She's also a reporter. That's how she knows David. He knows she's not going to because she's scrappy. So he puts a homing beacon in her purse. As soon as she leaves, not as soon as she leaves, she makes it home, and right as she's about to enter her apartment, more Nazis show up and grab her. And David looks at his, tracker, the beacon tracker, and says, oh, good, it looks like she went home. Because as far as he knows, her purse falls in the scuffle. So the beacon just shows that she's at her house. This is interesting. David thinks that was a pretty far-fetched story. Nazis with Gestapo-like tactics. Hard to believe. Things have changed a lot since the 70s. This is another just dumb writing thing where he's pretty high up in a building, and he leaps out the window and his scorpion togs. And then he says, "Whoops, I finally find a window that'll open and there's no ledge on it." So he didn't even look to see if there's a ledge. He just leaped out this window. Luckily, he's got his grappling hook, so he doesn't die. That would be a pretty stupid way to die for a superhero. But he almost did. So here we go. Just, they obviously just wanted to make a typical superhero comic. So they're torturing the rabbi. He won't give in to their plans, but that's why they got the daughter. They know how precious she is to him, and they basically say, if you don't bring our Nazi friends to life, we're going to kill her. So he agrees. And meanwhile, though, what he's really doing is recanting the incantation that awakens the golem, who lives in his basement, I guess, all these years. So the golem wakes up. Meanwhile, I don't even want to call him the scorpion. He's a fucking fraud scorpion. He shows up at the rabbi's and Sarah's house just as the golem is busting out of the basement. He, just thinks it's a monster, and so he's trying to stop it. But it's like trying to stop a mountain. It seems like they're really trying to make him like Spider-Man. He's always swinging around on that grappling hook line. And just his position, the way he leaps around, that almost looks like, Ditko. And a weird Ditko pose. The strain is too much for the rabbi. He collapses. But before he collapses, he says, the golem's coming. I can sense it. When the golem lifts up the scorpion looks in his eyes, and his eyes show Sarah being, captured under the World Trade Center. He sees a sign. That's how he knows. So he's like, oh, for some reason, the monster wants me to know what he's after. So we see the golem just going down to the subway. He somehow has a knowledge of the New York City subway. Though he doesn't have a token, so he just crashes through. Of course, everyone's running out saying, there's a monster in the subway. So Scorpion hears. He jumps down, runs down there to fight the monster some more, the golem. And I guess they're right near the World Trade Center. So he goes through the tunnels, and he sees some of the Nazi guys. So he's like, okay, this is the place. Scorpion knocks him out. Once again, a very like Spider-Man-like pose. And he sees all these Nazis. And there's the Golden Fuhrer again. This stupid face. So Scorpion shows up, starts tasseling, starts wrestling with everyone. And then the golem shows up, right through the wall. If you guys remember the golem myth, though, the golem becomes a danger to everyone. At first, it's a great instrument of, righteous vengeance. But it always goes awry. So after beating up all the Nazis, this looks kind of fun to me. I do like this panel. So he's beating up all the Nazis, but then he heads to the wall, which is basically that holds the sewage back for that sewage to energy treatment plant. Excuse me. This is a pretty weird ending for a superhero comic because he breaks the wall and all the sewage water drowns everyone except for the Scorpion saves the rabbi and saves Sarah and rescues them with his grappling hook, whatever thing. Oh, and by the way, it's on his wrist, just like Spider-Man's webbing. He can shoot it right out of his wrist. There's a very Spider-Man-like pose there. So Scorpion just runs off. And he's smelling and soaking wet. And then this is what he says to himself: but I can't get those Nazis out of my head. It's ridiculous. This is 1975. How has their hatred survived? Will there ever come a day when men stop persecuting each other? No. That won't probably ever happen. And it's weird also that he's drenched in sewage water. And he's just sitting on a rooftop. He's not going home to shower. So we leave our hero wet, weary, and sullen, yet resolved to continue fighting the intolerance that plagues man. Don't miss our next issue, on sale June 1st. It says, don't miss it, Tiger. Kind of another little echo of Spider-Man. But that was not to be. So now we're reading this, I guess there's definitely worse Atlas Seaboard comics than this. It is kind of interesting that they actually had this different take on the superhero word. That was his main focus. Intolerance and whatever, bigotry. So it could have been an interesting comic, though I doubt in the hands of Gabriel Levy and Jim Craig it would have been very good. But at least it would have been different than your average superhero comic. Superheroes just fighting muggers. We have the only letter page, and I like that one guy writes in and is just ripping it. The good ones, the Chaykin ones. He's just like, this is a piece of shit. Total failure. I don't know what this kid's talking about. And there you go, guys. The Scorpion. Really, for the most part, Howard Chaykin's creation. And then it was just completely bastardized. So, hope you guys enjoyed looking at these with me. These are very nostalgic comics for me. Well, I guess I had this back then too, but I never liked it even as a kid. I had enough critical faculties to realize this was bunk. But man, number one, if you can get your hands on it, well, both of them are, first two issues are pretty damn good. But the first one, I think, is just almost a flawless comic. It's just so good. And yeah, I'll stop babbling. But thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.